weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio and ESPN News, 250-plus markets across the United States of America, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up, as always, is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks. No contracts. Lots of stuff to get into today on the football front, on the basketball front, and obviously on the baseball front, because we start off today's show by giving out a heartfelt congratulations to the greatest closer in the history of Major League Baseball, a gentleman by the name of Mariano Rivera. I mean, what is there to say, ladies and gentlemen? This man, courtesy of the Baseball Writers Association of America, not only is a Hall of Famer, not only is a reliever, a closer to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, the first, but he is the first person in the history of baseball to receive 100% of the vote in order to get in to the Hall of Fame. And we can slice it any way we want to. But you know what? I'm going to tell you why he got 100%. Because no one wanted to be identified as the fool who voted against him. 652 career saves, most all-time, a 13-time All-Star, 11 World Series saves, a postseason ERA of .7, 952 games finished, a .759 whip. All of that largely accomplished with just one pitch. That deceptive cutter. And if you don't want to believe me, read the great Bill Madden. His articles in the New York Daily News. Not hard to find. We're talking about a guy in Mariano Rivera, and the Alex Rodriguez's of the world and others point to his character, what he is as a man of faith, how he conducts himself as a professional, how he was off the field as well as on the field. All of that stuff is fine. And nobody's trying to use, you don't need to lean on that to recognize why this man is a Hall of Famer. 100% of the vote. 100%. Because anybody that voted against Mariano Rivera, I'm trying to tell you right now, they'd have made some noise. They'd have made some noise. They'd have been on Front Street. You wouldn't have been able to hide that. You wouldn't have been able to sit up there and give a secret ballot and no one would have known who you are. Oh, no. If you were a fool that would have voted against Mariano Rivera being the first ballot Hall of Famer, everybody, you'd have lived in infamy. Everybody and their mother would have known who you are. And and whatever credibility that you may have had would have evaporated in a blink of an eye. Because that's how much of a surefire Hall of Famer Mariano Rivera was and is. Plain and simple. Now, obviously, when you're talking about guys, highest percentage of Hall of Fame votes received in the history of the Hall of Fame, courtesy of the Baseball Writers Association of America, Mariano Rivera was at 100%. Number 2 was Ken Griffey Jr. on the list, 99.3%. Who's the fool that voted against him? Tom Seaver, former great pitcher for the New York Mets, amongst other teams, and, of course, the great one himself, Nolan Ryan, who was one of my all-time favorites. 98.7% for him, 98.8% for Tom Seaver, 99.3% for Ken Griffey Jr., 100% for Mariano Rivera. Those are the top Hall of Fame vote getters in the history of the sport, in the history of the Hall of Fame. Now, when we think about Mariano Rivera, and we pay homage to him, as Derek Jeter did, as Andy Pettitte did, as a host of others who did it, because Derek Jeter is coming up in 2020 for the Hall of Fame. It'll be interesting to see whether or not he'll get 100%, because I want to see the fool who votes against him being a Hall of Famer. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. It brings me to a few other names that did not make the Hall of Fame, obviously. Namely Barry Bonds and, of course, Roger Clemens. Now, let me be very, very clear in what I'm about to say, because I think it's very, very important. I think it's only right. You know, Roger Clemens in his 7th year on the ballot didn't make it. Barry Bonds, his 7th year on the ballot, didn't make it. Roger Clemens received 59.5% of the vote this year, had received 57.3% of the vote in 2018. Barry Bonds received 59.1%, 4 percentage points less than Roger Clemens this year. Last year, he was at 56.4. I'm trying to figure out who are the people that are giving Roger Clemens more of an edge to enter the Hall of Fame than Barry Bonds. Now, let me be very, very clear about what I'm about to say. And I thought my man Max Kellerman articulated this point very, very adroitly on First Take this morning. First Take, our television show, 10 a.m. to noon, live every weekday, Eastern Standard Time, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific, on ESPN. Max's simple position is this. You know what? You can tell literally when they started using PEDs. Whether it was Roger Clemens the year he went from Boston to Toronto and went from a 10-13 record to 21-7, from an ERA near 4 to an ERA of 2. You can look at Barry Bonds when his head started swelling and he started gaining more girth, more mass, and ultimately became a home run hitter as opposed to just an elite Gold Glove 30-for-30 baseball player. You can tell when that happened. I go a step further than that. Not necessarily deeper, but definitely a step further. I am a person who believes that Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before he allegedly, presumably, ostensibly started using performance-enhancing drugs. I know there are Hall of Famers out there who believe anybody who used PEDs don't belong in the Hall with them. I respect that. They're Hall of Famers. If they got there the right way, they have every right to have that position. And I respect that. But I'm just speaking from my vantage point. The way I look at it is, was Sammy Sosa a Hall of Famer before he started hitting home runs? Hell no. Was Mark McGwire a Hall of Famer before he started hitting home runs? No. No, he was not. Not to me. But was Barry Bonds a Hall of Famer before he started hitting home runs? Yes, he was. He was a perennial Gold Glover, and he was good for 30 home runs and 30 steals a year. Good for it. Roger Clemens, well, why would I hold something against Roger Clemens? Well, there's a couple of reasons. I know he's a 7-time Cy Young Award winner, most of Major League Baseball history. I know he's an 11-time All-Star. I know he's the league MVP in 1986, American League. I got it. Won the Cy Young Award with 4 different teams: Boston, Toronto, New York, and Houston. No other pitcher has won with more than 2 different teams. I know all of that about Roger Clemens. I got it. One pitching Triple Crown twice, leading in wins, ERA, and strikeouts, 1997, 1998. I got all of this about Roger Clemens. You know what I hold about Roger Clemens? What I hold against him? Some people would sit up there and say, 3rd all-time in strikeouts, career ERA at 3.12, 354 career wins in 24 Major League Baseball seasons. You know what I hold against Roger Clemens? He was an idiot. Now, maybe that's not a reason, Nuno. It's not a reason, John, to omit people from the Hall of Fame, and I get it. But there's something to be said for being stupid. You see, when you make a case about A-Rod, for example, and we've got some sound, Nuno. I hope you can find that sound of A-Rod on First Take this morning, and I'll call on that in a second. But when you make a case for A-Rod, you could make the argument that, you know something? A-Rod had signed for $250 million. He wanted to prove that he could validate those dollars. But he was balling up to that point, which earned him the contract. Then he goes to the New York Yankees, and he signs for $300 million. And then you know what? You can make the case. He was trying to validate numbers he had already accumulated fairly. You look at Barry Bonds. What was he doing before his alleged steroid use? And if the book Game of Shadows, with excerpts that were printed in the Sports Illustrated, where it was highlighting Barry Bonds' purported alleged PED use, It specifically states in there that he was balling and he was doing things the right way. And then what happened is everybody started celebrating Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa in 1998 in their chase for the all-time single-season home run record of Roger Maris. So what happens? Barry Bonds said, oh, that's what we doing new now? John, JC, that's what Barry Bonds said. Oh, that's what we doing? So in other words, I'm better than them. Twice as good as them. I'm winning gold gloves. I'm not just smacking home runs. I'm stealing bases. I'm getting base hits. I'm hitting my batting averages up there. All of this. And on top of it all, I'm playing hellified defense. And y'all want to act like these brothers are better than me because they stealing the hearts of America because they're chasing a single-season home run title? That's what y'all going to do to me? Hell with it then. I guess I could do that too. That's according to the excerpts in The Game of Shadows in Sports Illustrated from the book The Game of Shadows. That's according to the excerpts. So my point is that one could legitimately argue, as crazy as this may sound, ladies and gentlemen, one could easily argue it's our fault for provoking Barry Bonds. Now, obviously, I'm engaging in a bit of hyperbole there because ultimately the person that's responsible is him. And I understand that. But in all seriousness, we can't be completely absolved from it. What the hell are we doing celebrating poor folks for and closing our eyes and taking a turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to PED users? I mean, the stuff was so egregious, what Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa was doing, that Mark McGwire showed up to Capitol Hill and forgot how to plead the fifth. Talk about, I'm not here to talk about the past. And Sammy Sosa, who spoke English all the time, talking to numerous people in the baseball community and beyond, suddenly shows up on Capitol Hill with an interpreter. Like he couldn't understand English. Couldn't even sit up there and say, America has been very, very good to me. He struggled to say that much. So you got all of that going on. That's what that's what happened with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. And don't get me in the Sammy Sosa bleaching his daggone skin. Don't get me started with what he's turned into. God rest his soul, but I don't think it's beyond the pale, Nuno, John, JC, or anybody else to say that he's putting the late, great Michael Jackson to shame in that category right now. Have you seen Sammy Sosa? They want to attribute it to vitiligo or whatever the hell it is, well, all they want to. I ain't buying that. Look at that man. Look at that man. But that's beside the point. I regressed. Let me get back on track. Those guys were cheating. And Barry Bonds said, damn it, look at y'all celebrating now when they ain't even in my class. So let me show you what I could do if I was doing what they're doing. Because everybody in baseball knew who was using PEDs and who wasn't. And now what we do? What we do is we transfer to Roger Clemens. Well, Stephen A., why won't you give him a similar pass? Very, very simple. Roger Clemens left Boston. His last year in Boston, Roger Clemens was 10-13. He wasn't on anybody's radar. He leaves the Boston Red Sox to go to the Toronto Blue Jays. And in 1996 with Boston, he went 10-13 with a 3.63 ERA. Pitched 242 innings. Had 257 strikeouts. The very next year, and he was 33 years old at the time. The very next year, he's 34. He goes 21-7. ERA dips from 3.6 to 2.05. Innings pitched went from 242 to 264. Strikeouts went from 257 to 292. And he won the Cy Young. Come on now. And even then, we still didn't say anything. Because from a numbers perspective, all right, fine. Even though it's relatively suspicious, go on about your business. And what does Roger Clemens do? You know what he did, ladies and gentlemen? He sat up there. He went into retirement. Into retirement. They left him alone. This was 1997. He was in Toronto. He played 10 more years. Highly suspicious with what he was doing. Nobody said a word. And yes, his personal trainer, Brian McNamee, sat up there and volleyed or lobbied allegations in his direction. All of that was true. Nobody bothered, correct me if I'm wrong, Nuno. Correct me if I'm wrong, John. Nobody bothered Roger Clemens until he dared Congress to subpoena him. Dared Congress to invite him up on Capitol Hill. Dared them. All he had to do was shut the hell up and go away. He was retired. And instead, this brother dared Congress to invite him up on Capitol Hill. Now, if you know anything about Congress, if you're a public figure and you're going to open your mouth and dare them to do something like that, first of all, they're going to do it because you dared them. And secondly, they're going to do it because that's more face time for them on television. He showed up on Capitol Hill. You had politicians who were supposedly there to interrogate and put him through an inquisition looking for photo ops, trying to get a picture with him at every turn. What did you think was going to happen? I mean, they just flossed all over him. I mean, it was embarrassing. And somehow, some way, they managed to ask him questions. And do you remember when Roger Clemens said, I misremembered? I didn't even know that was a word until he used it. I misremembered. Got your wife on the cover of Sports Illustrated looking all buffed. Now, for the record, I'm not being disrespectful to Mrs. Roger Clemens. She did absolutely nothing wrong. If that's what she was doing and that's what she wanted to do, training under Brian McNamee herself, that's her business. She wasn't playing Major League Baseball. She wasn't violating any rules. So under no circumstances to Roger Clemens and the Roger Clemens family am I casting any aspersions on the wife or his children, for that matter, who I'm quite sure are wonderful. I'm talking about Roger Clemens. And I'm not even talking about his PED, his alleged PED use, which he has religiously denied. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about him being stupid enough to open his mouth and dare them to invite him to Capitol Hill. Without that testimony, Nuno, John, without that testimony on Capitol Hill, under oath, is Roger Clemens in the Hall of Fame by now? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. This is seventh ballot. There is no way on earth that Roger Clemens is left off the ballot for the Hall of Fame this long if he didn't open his big, fat mouth. But because he did, he resembled Rafael Palmeiro more so than anybody else. Remember when Rafael Palmeiro, formerly of the Baltimore Orioles, dared Congress and went up there and pointed his finger in his face? I have never used PEDs. And then suddenly we found out about him and we learned more about B12 vitamins than we ever have in our life. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. They did it to themselves. Barry Bonds didn't invite that scrutiny. He didn't do that. Matter of fact, Barry Bonds was relatively acerbic to the media, from my understanding. He wanted you to watch the show. He wasn't in everybody's face smiling. He felt he was better than Sammy Sosa. He felt he was better than Mark McGwire. We gonna deny that he was? We all know what time it is. And listen, I'm different. I'm not casting any aspersions on people. Like, for example, the Baseball Writers Association of America, those who voted guys in, fine. Those who elected not to and have a certain standard, I get all of that. I understand. They have that right. They cover the sport religiously. I'm not going to sit up here and question great ones like Bill Madden, who I've read since I was a child. He feels the way that he feels he's earned that right. profound respect for him and his contemporaries who have covered this sport admirably for decades. But I do consider it a distinct difference. Roger Clemens, to me, should be omitted from the Hall of Fame for sheer stupidity, opening his big fat mouth. Shut the hell up. You were retired. Nobody was bothering you. You can go away in the sunset. They didn't give Mark McGwire that option. They didn't give Sammy Sosa that option. They didn't give Barry Bonds that option. You had it. Nobody was bothering Roger Clemens. And you want to be all sanctimonious and self-righteous and defiant, knowing good and damn well all the evidence was pointing against you. And then Brian McNamee said, well, I trained his wife. And then we see evidence with your wife buffed in a magazine with more muscles than most of us. You don't think that's going to qualify as some shred of evidence against you? You didn't know? Of course he did. But see, when you privileged in our society, you think you could get away with anything. And the smear that has stained Roger Clemens' career, Roger Clemens is the one person we can honestly say brought that on himself. Now, some of you might sit up there, which has absolutely nothing to do with PEDs, and say Pete Rose didn't do that. Pete Rose did exactly the same thing, rather. I tell you no. Pete Rose was irresponsible, some would argue amoral, and indecent. And obviously, the last allegations of his behavior, I'm not going to get into that. I'll stick to the gambling issue and his banishment from the sport of baseball. And here's what I would say to that. Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame too. Unless y'all could tell me that Pete Rose threw games as a baseball player, nothing should take away from what he did on the field. He's all-time hits leader. The greatest nickname in the history of sports, Charlie Hustle, because you were great, because you outworked and out-hustled everybody. And you produced. There's no excuse for Pete Rose not being in the Hall of Fame. I don't give a damn what anybody says. Roger Clemens, I got no problem with them keeping him out. Zero. Just for sheer stupidity. Pete Rose had issues. He had a problem. Some would say he had a disease. Others who presumably cheated are being punished. Roger Clemens was in the clear. Nobody was bothering him. And he ultimately ended up victimizing himself because he couldn't shut the hell up and just go into the sunset and retire. That's my position. It never has changed, and it never will. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. That was Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage in America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. By Progressive Insurance, protecting commercial vehicles and offering specialized coverages designed to protect your business. More progressivecommercial.com. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. It's my honor and privilege to have my next guest, my buddy, my colleague, the afternoon drive voice for 98.7 FM ESPN New York, the one and only, also the voice of the New York Yankees, covering them on the Yes Network, the one and only Michael Kay is on the line with yours truly right now. What's going on, Mike? How are you, buddy?
What's up, Mr. Smith?
Man, it's always good to talk to you. Let's get right into it. 100% of the vote. To me, I was leading into it. I was like, who's going to be the fool on the record for voting against Mariano Rivera? I wanted to see it. It didn't happen. 100% of the vote. When you think about that, first time in Major League Baseball history this has happened, talk to me about what thoughts went through your mind about this man that you covered for so many years.
Well, I was happy for him, and I thought like you that somebody would probably want to make a name for himself or herself. And I just think that the goodness of Mariano Rivera, obviously the greatness on the field, and I never, ever, and I saw him throw his first pitch, and I saw him throw his last pitch, Stephen. I never saw him treat anybody with disrespect. From the people that were the ushers and the vendors at Yankee Stadium, people that mopped the floors in the clubhouse, he treated everybody the same. He treated them with class, and I don't think that any writer wanted to have that stain on their all-time record that they kept Mariano Rivera from being a unanimous selection because, we all try to be objective. We try to be right down the middle and not let personal feelings impact the way we feel about somebody that's actually playing the game. But I think it does, and I'm sure that there are players that rub some writers the wrong way, and because of the rule of 10 where you have to be strategic in voting, they'll say, I'll leave this guy off so I can put somebody else on because he'll get enough votes. Nobody did that with Mariano because nobody wanted to be that person.
Michael K. right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. And when you look at it from that standpoint, I think to me, the message also that the Hall of Fame voters wanted to send was that there's a standard of excellence that we're going to hold these folks accountable to, but not just in terms of what you are on the field, but what you are on the field as well. More so than in any other sport, the Baseball Writers of America seem to be fixated on sending that kind of message. Am I right to peel that from this kind of voting?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they feel that they are the gatekeepers. And there's just such a different with the other sports Hall of Fames. Like, just for instance, you're watching Julian Edelman have a great game in the AFC Championship game. And in the fourth quarter, Tony Romo said, Julian Edelman should be in the Hall of Fame. That's how great he's been in big games. Mm-hmm. And Andrew Marchand in the Post pointed this out. I thought it was a great point. Julian Edelman was suspended for 4 games at the beginning of the year for PED use.
Right.
But in football, it doesn't matter. In baseball, it's a big deal. They really do take the type of person into account. And with Mo, I think that played in his favor.
Michael K. Posthumously, Roy Halladay, of course, Edgar Martinez and Mike Mussina are both elected in as well. Any issues with them getting into the Hall?
I thought Edgar Martinez obviously was long overdue. I mean, the narrative that, he was a DH and that's not a full position. I laugh at that. It's like saying Mariano Rivera is a closer. He's not a starting pitcher. DH is a position. This is one of the best right-handed hitters I ever saw in my life, and who, by the way, owned Mariano Rivera. So he deserved to get in well before the 10 years that passed. And as for Roy Halladay, you look at that 9-year stretch, he was about as good as anybody. He deserves to be in. And, the sad part about that is that he's not going to be here to enjoy it.
No question. What about Mussina? What are your thoughts on him?
I thought he was borderline. The fact that he pitched his entire career in the American League East during the steroid era and did as well as he did and ringing up 270 wins, I certainly understand him getting in. I was a little stunned that, only a couple of years ago he had 20% of the vote. So somehow he picked up a lot of votes in a short amount of time. But I also look at it this way, Stephen. If he's in, why isn't Curt Schilling in? Why isn't Andy Pettitte in? Why did David Cohn get under 5% of the vote? Now, of those 4 men I just named, and again, I believe that Mussina belongs in, but if you had a game to be started and your whole life depended on it, whether you lived or died, would you want Mussina, Schilling, Cohn, or Pettitte? I'd say a lot of people might say of those 4, Mussina would be 4th.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Curt Schilling right now, 7th year on the ballot, only received 60.9% of the vote, 216 wins, a 3.46 ERA, an 11-2 record with a 2.23 ERA and 120 strikeouts in 19 postseason starts. I definitely get your point right there. We're talking to Michael K. right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens. Obviously, when people think about them, both of them were in their 7th year on the ballot. Roger Clemens received 59.5% of the vote. Barry Bonds received 59.1% of the vote. First things first, are you cool with that? And secondly, do you think they'll ever get a point where they get in?
Before this vote, I thought they were definitely going to get in. They have 3 more years. But the fact that they jumped only about 1% means that the anti-PED faction has really dug its heels in, and they're not going to move. I don't think they're going to get in. And that's also impactful for Alex Rodriguez, who said it today, I think earlier with you,
yes,
that he's got to root for them because if they get in, then he's got a good chance of getting in. I'm not sure if it impacts David Ortiz because it's still kind of murky whether or not that was a failed test on the baseline report and what it meant. Rob Manfred stood up for him, this year talking about it, but. If I had a vote, Stephen, and you have to be a baseball writer for 10 straight years in order to have a vote, and I was 7 before I got the radio job with the Yankees, so I never got it. If I had a vote, I would probably vote for everybody, even if they were stained with the rumors of it.
Why is that?
Because I think there are people that are in that did it. that's skated. It's like the people that speed every day, but they don't get tickets. I'm not denying. If we knew for sure who did it and who didn't, and we kept everybody who did do it out, then I'd be cool with keeping them out. The one line I would draw, and this doesn't help Alex, is if you were suspended or if you failed a test, I would not vote for you because then you flew right in the face of the rules. The other guys, it's kind of nebulous. I mean, to this day, most people believe that Roger did do something, but Roger continues to deny, and there's no smoking gun, there's no test, nothing. He went to court, and he won his case, and still he's being kept out. So the moral police are electing to keep him out. But again, there are people that are in there that I'm quite sure did PEDs.
Well, we could go with Bonds and talking about the cream and the clear, and that was proof. But he'll remind anybody that when he tests negative for a test or whatever the case may be, and as a result, he's proclaimed his innocence to some degree as well. Do you view him the same way you view Roger Clemens?
The clear stuff certainly makes it a little murkier, but again, didn't fail a test. I just think the whole thing is such a mess because, if you're just going by numbers, Stephen A., Manny Ramirez belongs in the Hall of Fame in terms of being a player, 555 home runs, over 1,000 extra base hits, but he was suspended. Sammy Sosa never suspended. The guy has over 600 home runs. He's a Hall of Fame player when you look at it that way. I just think this puts such a stain on the whole proceedings because there's so much uncertainty, and I don't think anybody knows the answers for sure. And then you look at a guy like Andy Pettitte, who admitted that he did do it, and he said that he did it for a short period of time to get back from injury, and he only got 9% of the vote. And if you look at his numbers, he certainly warrants more than that. I'm not going to rip the people that want to be the moral police, but I just wish that it was all a lot more cut and dry. Because you know how I am, Stephen.
Yeah.
I like cut and dried.
I know you do. So do I. But I got to tell you this. I do hold one thing against Roger Clemens, and I've been on the record. I accuse him of stupidity. I think unlike anybody else where you had people inundating them with accusations and beyond and just bothering them and they couldn't escape from it all, Roger Clemens could have sauntered into retirement and nobody would have bothered him. And he opened his big flap and dared Congress to invite him to Capitol Hill. And I just view him differently because I view him as a bit more arrogant about it or a bit more stupid about it. Am I wrong in feeling that way?
Well, I think he certainly showed his hubris, but, he also, he went with the Shaggy defense. It wasn't me.
The Shaggy defense. That's a beautiful one coming from you, Michael K. I never thought that. That's hilarious. Michael K. right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Last question. Absolutely nothing to do with PDs, but everything to do with the Hall of Fame. I think that in our society, the land of second chances, I think that it should be applicable to sports, not just life itself, which brings me to Pete Rose. We see a lot of guys that should be in that's never getting in. Obviously, we weren't talking about PEDs there. We're talking about gambling and baseball and what have you. Have you got to a point where you believe Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame? Or are you one of those people that's a diehard and saying no way in hell, it's a lifetime ban, that's the way it goes?
Well, that's the holy grail is the you can't bet on the sport. And it was on every door, and he was just so blatant about it. And I like Pete a lot, personally. I think he's kind of a fun guy to talk with, and we've had him on our show a lot. I probably would not allow him back in. Now, he's allowed to be at baseball functions, but to be in the Hall of Fame, that's the ultimate honor. And he certainly has bats there and gloves and balls and uniforms. So he's represented in, quote, unquote, the museum aspect of it. But to get that plaque and to break the ultimate rule, I believe in second chances, but, to earn a living and stuff like this, but not to be honored. So probably I would say no.
Yeah, but what about the fact, Michael K., that we're not talking about him as a manager where he was, where he admitted, betting on baseball. We're talking about him as a player where there was no evidence that he did that.
True. If you look at it that way, but again, he kind of stained his whole resume by doing it as a manager. And when he managed, he was also playing for a while.
Yeah.
And it certainly leaves open the possibility of murkiness in terms of the overlap. When did it start? I mean, did he all of a sudden start to gamble when he was a manager? Although there's no proof of when he was a player.
Right. You're the best, my man. The one and only Michael K. Afternoon Drive voice for 98.7 FM ESPN Radio. Also the voice of the New York Yankees on the Yes Networks, covering all of their games. Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you so much for taking time.
Shaggy defense, man. Shaggy defense
is hilarious. I'm going to use it, and I'm definitely going to give you credit for it. No question about it. Thanks a lot, buddy.
You got it.
Take it easy. The one and only Michael K. Michael K. Right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. If you missed any of my opening segment, don't worry. You can go check out the entire interview on demand in the Stephen A. Podcast, brought to you by the new Capital One Saver Card. Earn 4% cash back on dining and entertainment, 2% at grocery stores, and 1% on all other purchases. Hey! What's in or more replay rules. I don't think you need more. I don't think you need more things interrupting the game. I certainly am not advocating that. What I'm simply saying is that, you know what? You can ignore replays in the first half. You can save reviewable calls and replays for the second half. Or you could have that nuclear button and save it for the most important parts of a game. And you can use that discretion to some degree. I think you can do a variety of things, but I think ultimately you need to eradicate replays being used. A matter of fact, the biggest thing I would, let me take that back. The biggest thing I would support is eradicating all replays and reviewable calls until the last 5 minutes of a game and then overtime. That's what I would do. That's exactly what I would do. Do it when it matters most. And as Jones said, Stephen Jones, executive VP for the Cowboys, we certainly don't want to officiate from replay. I don't think at the end of the day that's good for the game. I agree with him. You don't want to officiate from the replay standpoint, but what you do want to do is make sure that it's not overutilized where it interrupts the flow of the game, but it's used at the most pivotal times to make sure that the outcome of the game is secured in terms of it being the right calls. I do think that's something that's worthy of getting into, make no mistake about it. And I think that's something that simply cannot be ignored. 888-SAY-ESPN, it's 888-729-3776. By the way, congratulations, Larry Fitzgerald has decided to do a one-year deal with the Arizona Cardinals. They announced future Hall of Fame receiver in his 16th NFL season. According to team president Michael Bidwell, he said in a statement, no player has meant more to this franchise or this community than Larry Fitzgerald. In my discussions with him, it was clear that he is as driven and passionate as ever. We are thrilled he'll be back in 2019. That's what they said. Larry Fitzgerald tweets, thank you to Mr. Bidwell for your honesty, support, and friendship, and for lowering the hurdles for your guy. LOL, laugh out loud. So with a second-year quarterback in Josh Rosen, a first-year coach in Cliff Kingsbury, Larry Fitzgerald decides to come back for one more year. If anybody deserves the right to make that decision, it's him. Get that money. I ain't mad at him. I ain't mad at him at all. I'm mad at who he's going to be playing with, though, or who he's going to be playing for. But I'm certainly not mad at him for coming back. Saints cornerback, another person in the news, PJ Williams, arrested on DWI charge, driving while impaired, while intoxicated, plus additional charges early Wednesday morning. New Orleans police confirmed. According to a report from the New Orleans Police Department, Williams was arrested and booked into the New Orleans Parish Justice Center for driving while intoxicated, speeding 80 miles per hour in a 50-mile-per-hour zone, improper lane usage, and failure to use a turn signal. He was released on bond later Wednesday. He's in a contract year, ladies and gentlemen. It's not the end of the world so long as he didn't hurt anybody, even though he could have. If he was behind the wheel, DUI status, no doubt, can't be condoned. But I will tell you this also. He's in a contract year. Third-round pick, 2015. This past season, appeared in 15 games with 7 starts. But he's set to be a free agent in March when the new league year begins. How in God's name do you think that helps you? How do you think that helps you? It's just not smart. It's just not smart. Find yourself in any position that's going to compromise your money. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Let's get back to the phones. Let's go to Barbara. You're live with Stephen A. Hello, Barbara. How are you?
Yeah, I was just wondering if it had been the Chiefs that had won the coin toss, instead of the Patriots, and they went down the field and got a touchdown, would they be as much against the coin toss as there is with the Patriots are doing it?
No, I don't think anybody's against the coin toss. I think what the problem is that people have a problem with the rule limiting one team from not even being able to get a crack at scoring a touchdown. The reality is that in the National Football League, if you win a coin toss and you get the ball and you march downfield and you score a touchdown, game's over. The other team doesn't even get a chance to score. Now, if you get a field goal, that's different. And if you obviously don't score, then that's different because the game is still tied and then somebody else gets a chance to score. But my issue is that you know what? It's overtime. You have possession of the ball. You score a touchdown, and the game is over without the other offense never even getting the chance to see the field. That's my issue.
Well, I understand that, too, and I understand that the defense should be defending and trying to get that ball back.
Sure,
and keep them from
sure they
going
tried.
into the
Sure they tried, Barbara. They just weren't good enough. Chiefs defense has stunk all year long. They ranked 27th against the run. They was 31st, second to last against the pass, second to last, 31st overall in yardage allowed. And we all knew they weren't going to stop Tom Brady. So, I mean, that was a foregone conclusion. The problem is that Patrick Mahomes, the league MVP to be, didn't even get an opportunity to touch the football. And that's the problem most of us have with it.
Yeah, but I thought maybe some of the people just, because I watch. Now, the Cowboys are my team, and I know how you feel about the Cowboys, but I watch football. I love football because I'm a shut-in and I can't get out, and football is my game. I love it. Mm-hmm. And I just had that in my mind. If there would be all this uproar, if it had been the Chiefs that went down and got it instead of the Patriots. That's all I had.
Okay.
I just wondered.
I understand. Barbara, I deeply appreciate the call. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Really appreciate it. Mike in Denver, talk to me, bro.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm all right.
Want to talk about the Hall of Fame yesterday.
Yeah, I'm listening.
I was glad that Rivera got in, man, unanimously. It's about time somebody made it. A couple other players could have did it, but that's neither here nor there. He was stand-up guy, like Michael Kay said. I really appreciate listening to him on this show. He enlightened me on a lot of things, and it's sad that Barry ain't got in yet, but he got 3 more years. So, do you think Rivera should have got unanimously in?
Who? Mariano Rivera?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There ain't a soul alive that should have voted against him going in. Without question, he was worthy of receiving one question.
That's what I was expecting. One other quick thing, if you don't mind. I was thinking the same thing you thinking about the Lakers might try to make a move on Mike Conley. What you think?
Listen, I think they should. I think they need an experienced guard. Somebody that could do the things that Rondo can do, plus be a better offensive player. I got no problem with that. And I think that's Mike Conley.
Now, if they was to sign him, now would that affect their cap space?
No,
because you got a big contract.
No, it'll be minimal because the contracts have to relatively match in order for you to make a swap, make a trade.
Okay. All right, then. Well, that's what I want to talk to you about, man. Have a good day, and I'll be calling back in.
You do the same, man. Thank you so much. Let's go to Tom. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Tommy?
How are you?
Talk to me.
I just want to weigh in on a few things. First of all, no doubt Rivera deserved to be 100%. I just don't like the fact that he's the first in baseball because he's really playing a position that didn't even exist till the 1960s. So with that said,
well, you got to play under the rules that have been confined to you. And then when you think about what he did in the role that he played, it's just undeniable, sir. He's one of the greatest players in Major League Baseball history. For at his position, 652 career saves, most all time, a .70 ERA, 42 saves in the postseason, a 100% WHIP, which is the lowest among retired pitchers in the live baseball era, 5-time world champion, 13-time All-Star, won the World Series MVP in '99 and 2003 ALCS MVP. Come on now. Oh,
no, he deserved it. He deserved 100%. I'm just asking, do you think he should have been the first with Bob Gibson, Willie Mays, McNeil, Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say because they're not just taking into account what you did on the field. They're taking into account how you've represented the game off the field. These voters take this very, very seriously, and your behavior matters. So it's not just about on-field exploits. It's about more than that. And it's undeniable that Mariano Rivera had a better relationship with the media than most.
Okay, and then the next thing is Clemens. I agree. I watched your point on First Take that he was stupid. I won't argue the point, but you can't really put him down and then boost Rose up.
Well, again, for me, Rose is about compassion. It's been over 30 years, sir. It's been over 30 years.
But
I mean, we got murderers and everybody else that's more forgiving. That's been forgiven more than this guy. And all I'm saying is that as a player, Charlie Hustle performed on the field of play on a Hall of Fame level. My attitude is put him in a hall and put an asterisk next to his name and identify the transgressions that he did. But don't try to deny what he was and what he meant to us all as a player, because you can't do that.
But do you think moving to 7 miles away from Mandalay Bay while he's appealing his case was a brilliant thing? That's what I mean.
No, I'm not. I don't think it was brilliant.
He didn't deserve it.
I don't think it was brilliant, but I do think that when you've never worked a 9 to 5 and the only requisite skill that you've had available to you is playing the sport of baseball, which you love dearly, then chances are you're going to try to use something that's associated with to maximize your marketing potential. You're going to try to get money, off the game as best as you possibly can. Pete Rose, as bad as it is for him to be associated with that stuff in any kind of way whatsoever, it is clearly how he's going about the business of making his money.
Yep. Now, finally, Barry Bonds.
Yep.
I think this. I have a problem with the whole 80s to 2000 era of baseball for many reasons. First of all, that era came up with magnesium, aluminum, and titanium bats from Little League to college. And that puts about 40 feet on your swing. Now they get to the pros, and they're stroking with a wooden bat, and the owners are looking at them going, Jesus, why ain't you putting it 20 rows back? It annoys me that the owners have gotten away scot-free because they had to know what was going on.
Yep, and they turned a blind eye, and a deaf ear to it because they were making money. And you also have to understand that in the end, that's what the owners care about, making money.
Well, exactly, but the law wasn't enforced until 2003 where they did mandatory testing.
Yep.
So you don't think it was an owner might have said, look, we got to get 40 feet back on your swing. That's all I'm saying. Go see the trainer. He'll help you out. I know that's hypothetical. But, now here's the other thing. Golf, tennis, and hockey, especially hockey, they're all using striking instruments that are far better than anyone else, and they don't have to change when they get to the pros. From curved sticks to titanium hockey, and on with tennis and golf. Imagine if you said to Tiger Woods, you got to use wooden shafts.
I understand. I got your point. But it is what it is. It really is. I mean, listen, we could come up with reasons to question, their judgment or whatever, but it's about consistency right here, and their consistent position is that it's not just about what you do on the field of play, but what you do morally and ethically off the field. And as it pertains to owners, there's but so much policing you can do, unless you're talking about a late George Steinbrenner with the whole Howie Spira situation, where it was clear and flagrant what he was doing at that particular moment in time. There's little to nothing that you can do to a particular owner, and that's really what it comes down to. I got to run, though, Tom. Thank you so much for the call. I deeply appreciate it. Carlton, I've been waiting for you, buddy. How are you?
You've been hiding on me,
No,
Stephen.
you've been hiding. No, you've been hiding. Excuse me, Carlton. I called you out on Monday morning. I've been looking for you for 2 days. I led the show Monday. Where's Carlton at? Where's Carlton?
I've been calling. You won't pick up the phone, Stephen.
Come
I wanted to inject some reality into all the
I'm listening.
nonsense.
Hold on. Let me lay it out for everybody. Carlton, who used to be Carlton in Massachusetts, who's now Carlton in Tampa, is the biggest Belichick hater you can find. He'll sit up there and find any excuse to poo-poo any kind of success that Bill Belichick has had. But now that the Patriots are in their 9th Super Bowl in this man's era, clearly having overachieved yet again, I was looking for Carlton Monday. It is Wednesday. We have finally found him. The floor is yours, Carlton. Explain yourself.
First off, the reason that there is a Rule 17 in the NFL rule book is for when they find Bill Belichick with the Rams playbook on the sidelines in the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. And I'm dead serious about that, Stephen A. Not that particular event, but it's for those kind of integrity issues. If they found out a team was actively cheating, Roger Goodell might actually reverse and call a redo over on a game. That's why that rule is in there, for those kind of integrity issues. But now let's get to the complete nonsense about the stellar Brady performance against the Chiefs and how he is just beyond reproach and how one little minute thing can change how everybody in the country views multiple things. Stephen A., with 1 minute and 1 second to go in the game, Tom Brady threw his third interception of the game.
Oh, come on. Gronkowski should have caught that pass. Come on, Carlton.
High,
oh, come on, Carlton.
He can't jump 2 inches now after all his back
he had both hands on it, Carlton. And because Gronkowski didn't catch the ball and it went off his fingers and it was intercepted, but D Ford was offside, Tom Brady got saved. That's what you're about to tell us. That's what you're about to tell us.
Passer rating was at that point in time, Stephen A., with 1 minute to go in the game?
So what?
63.2, Stephen A. Worse than every single quarterback in the NFL this year who had enough pass attempts to qualify for a full season passer rating. That was Brady's passer rating with 1 minute to go in the game. 63.2.
What did he do? How about giving me his percentage when he was when it was third down situations in the fourth quarter and in overtime? How about giving me that? What about that?
Including all those positives, he had the worst passer rating for that weekend, Stephen A. Worst of the 4 quarterbacks that played that weekend, Stephen A. Even with all those great throws that you're talking about in those third quarter completions, but D Ford lining up offsides in the neutral zone, which by the way was only the second time he did it all year. That was only the second time that ever happened. He got all this nonsense about the great performance of Brady. He got Sutton fired, okay? Sutton's not fired if they're going to the kick.
Hold on. He got Sutton fired? Did Sutton not deserve to be fired before that game? As defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, who were 27th against the run, 31st against the pass, 31st in yards allowed, he should have been gone. He shouldn't have been back this year.
His first 3 years with the Chiefs, he had a top defense in the league. I mean, like top 5. So he did not have a good year. I don't disagree with that. People do also underestimate, though, with that quick scoring offense, the Chiefs defense is on the field more series. In other words, the opposition gets more cracks at the ball than other teams do. So you kind of got to factor in the fact that they score so quickly that the other team has more possession, so therefore they're going to have more yards. But they were poor even on yards per attempt and passing yards per attempt. So he did not have a good year. But in the totality of his career with the Chiefs, he's been okay. He certainly wouldn't have been fired if D Ford didn't line up in the neutral zone, because it would be the Chiefs that are going to the Super Bowl. And the one last thing I want to talk about Tom Brady. He's a great quarterback. You've never heard me here. He is not one of the, if not the all-time greatest quarterback, counting his inspiration to the rest of the team, how hard he works, all of that stuff. He is also the luckiest NFL player to ever live. He has benefited from now 4 of the all-time worst in NFL playoff history. The worst ref call in NFL playoff history, the tuck rule, which got him his first Super Bowl, when he won
against Oakland Raiders.
The worst NFL head coaching call in the playoffs.
Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll not giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch.
With 55 seconds to go, not handing off to Marshawn Lynch. 3 times he could have handed off to Marshawn Lynch with 55 seconds and they had a timeout. The worst collapse ever by a team in the history of the Super Bowl. The Atlanta Falcons up 28-3, including things like Devontae Freeman completely whiffing on a high-tower blitz and sacking Matt Ryan, who fumbled, who gave the Patriots a key score late in the game, including the ball going right through Alfred's hands. A Brady throw, by the way, that would have been his second pick to Alfred that game. And Julian Edelman comes up with a phenomenal catch. So that was the worst call. And this time, the worst defensive mental mistake ever in the NFL playoffs when D Ford lines up offside with 1 minute to go.
You know what, Carlton? I got to run, but all of that may be true. But I recall Tom Brady having 500 yards passes in the Super Bowl that they lost. I recall I recall Tom Brady converting on a third down, a 3rd and 10 to Edelman, a 3rd and 10 to Edelman, a 3rd and 10 to Rob Gronkowski. And that was in overtime, not to mention the regular season. I recall Tom Brady picking apart the Chargers a week earlier. I recall Tom Brady winning more and more games after games after games. Luck's a part of it, no doubt about it, but nothing takes away from his greatness. I got to go, Carlton. I appreciate the call. I got your perspective. Feel free. You and I will be volleying back and forth all week long as we get set to watch Bill Belichick attempt to win his 6th Super Bowl title. I'm quite sure you'll find something to complain about it then as well. But it won't work with me, Carlton. It will not work. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. For upcoming holidays like Valentine's, 1-800 Flowers has the best bouquets and deals around, like a dozen assorted roses for $19.99, or upgrade to 2 dozen assorted roses for $10 more. ESPN is 888-729-3776. Let's go to Tatiana. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Tatiana? How are you?
You know I'll wait forever for you.
How are
good.
you?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. You are so amazing. I can't be objective when it comes to it, and I'm going to be quick. You, when it comes to sports, with your passion, you are objective.
I try to.
And I'm telling you that.
Well, thank you.
No. So my quick question regarding the voters on baseball. Are they old and antiquated? I mean, if the Oscars can change, why can't you change? It's too much cray-cray.
Well, I would say this. It is old. It is a bit antiquated, but the players that are looking to get into the Hall of Fame were aware of the rules and regulations prior to participating in it. And you participated under the guise of those rules for many, many years. So understanding that, I would lean more towards what Alex Rodriguez explained this morning. And he was talking about it. And before you hang up, Tatiana, listen to Alex Rodriguez. He was on my show First Take on ESPN every weekday morning from 10 a.m. to noon. He was on the show this morning speaking about Hall of Fame voters and what have you, particularly the Hall of Fame players rather associated with PED use. Listen to what he had to say. Take it away, guys.
I think it's a polarizing subject. You can't run away from it. I've taken the approach that I think talking about it is best. And look, I make no surprise or secrets. I've made my mistakes. I've paid huge penalties. Would love to get in, but I understand that I made my own bed. So if I don't make it to the Hall of Fame, I can live with that. I would be bummed. It would suck. And I can't believe that I put myself in this situation. But if that happens, I have no one to blame but myself. I will tell you for Barry and for Roger, I love those guys. I think they would tell you on their own if they made a mistake or not. I don't know about them. I can only tell you about the mistakes that I made.
Tatiana, you heard that from the great Alex Rodriguez. You see my point?
Accountability.
There you go. And we appreciate the fact that he seems willing to accept it. And I think that we've got to hold on to that, appreciate that, and more importantly, hope that others come forward and are willing to be as accountable as he is.
Love you, dude. Keep it real.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Max. You're live with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A., I had a question about gambling when it comes to athletes. Can you see a way where there'd be a problem if you were to gamble on yourself to win? Like, let's say Pete Rose is not a good example for baseball because it's a team sport, but let's say a boxer bets their paycheck on themselves. Can you see where that can have a problem?
I think there could be a problem any which way, but I think here's where the ultimate problem is, particularly in a sport where you're just betting on yourself and you're the lone participant. If you're not transparent about it, if we find out that you bet it and then you just give up some lip service about how you bet it on yourself, nobody's going to buy that. If you're up front, if you're Floyd Mayweather, if you are Deontay Wilder, and you sit up there, you say, I'm going to go in the ring and I'm going to knock this boy out. And, oh, by the way, I bet on myself to do it in Vegas. Well, people can say what they want, but nobody's going to treat you like you're some dishonest, deceitful criminal trying to get over. You are confident, you bet on yourself, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's one of the reasons why Pete Rose tries to emphasize he bet on himself to win. The problem with that, it's a team sport, and you can't speak for what the other guys are going to do, okay? And not only that, it's a hard and fast rule in the sport of Major League Baseball. It's on the doors of every Major League Baseball clubhouse you can find, and every single one of them. And he absolutely positively knew and did it anyway, and was incredibly, repeatedly, and perpetually deceptive with it. So I do understand those who have no love for Pete Rose. My argument is that you can't argue with his production as a player, the money that he generated for the sport, the popularity that he contributed to the sport, et cetera, et cetera. You going to give all of that back? Are you going to give all of the benefits that was reaped from having Pete Rose as a part of your commodity? Are you going to give that back? The answer is no. So to me, as a player, let him in the Hall of Fame because that's where he belongs.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's go to Frank. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Frank?
Hey, how you doing, Stephen A?
I'm all right.
I wanted to give you a shout out, man. I got a lot of respect for you, man, and what you do in your craft, man. I think you're one of the best at it.
Thank you.
But I had a comment about these Saints, man. Look, I'm not a Saints fan. I'm a Niner fan. We wasn't in it, so I don't root for the Rams. I'm from L.A., but a lot of people, they give me a lot of flack. But when the Saints was down there on the 5-yard line, 1 minute, 55 seconds left, they elected pass it. This is my problem. I know the PI call or whatever. I don't care about all that. You elect to pass it. You got 5 yards to go. The game is tied. All I wanted to see these guys do was run it 3 straight times. At least get 80 seconds off the clock. Kick a field goal, and you leave them probably 30 seconds left. And I think the game is in the bag at that point. Why does Sean Payton elect to pass it? I can't get that for the life of me. We just seen numerous of times they never give it to the running back 5 yards left. Kamal was busting all game. Just explain that to me. So I really don't get that.
There's nothing to explain. It was a boneheaded decision on the part of Sean Payton, which is what Saints critics bring up all the time, or at least over the last 3 days. The difference is that if you're Sean Payton, why are we assuming that the field goal was automatic? In other words, you get that first down, you could end up running it in from 1 yard out. And then, because, for example, if you're the Los Angeles Rams, right, it could have been a situation where you got 1 minute and 45 left, right? The pass interference penalty is called. And rather than let the Saints run out the clock and then kick a game-winning field goal, you might have let them walk or saunter right into the end zone just so you could get the ball back, even though you would have needed a touchdown instead of a field goal. You see my point? So the Saints' objective was to keep the ball away from the Rams, but in the same breath, they either had to kick a field goal to do it, or they were going to run in for a touchdown. Who's to say that the Rams would not have allowed them to just run right in for a touchdown just to let them score? As a result, helping them get the ball back while time was still on the clock, so they couldn't just wait for it to dial down to 0 before they ultimately kicked the field goal. We're assuming a lot of things. One thing that we can't assume, and we don't have to, is that no pass interference call was a flagrant mistake on the part of the officials.
That was definitely a mistake, but I blame the official, but I don't blame that being the game, because the Saints also had an opportunity in overtime when they got the ball first.
That's true, which is what Whitworth pointed out.
After Sue got a couple of hits on Breeze, he didn't play
Stop
the
right
game
there.
after that.
Stop right there. Let me tell you why overtime doesn't matter. Whether it was the Saints scoring with no time left or Los Angeles allowing the Saints to score so they can then get the ball back, it was unquestionable that the one thing that wasn't going to happen was a tie. There wasn't going to be overtime. There was going to be a winner or a loser. That's what was going to happen. That's the one thing that's unquestionable.
Yep.
All right? Take it easy, man. Appreciate the call. JP, you're live with Stephen. They talk to me.
Hey, Stephen, I just want to say, man, huge fan. It's the first time ever I got to get on the phone with you, so I'm excited right now. So appreciate you taking the phone call.
Yep, go ahead.
I got two. I want your opinion on two things. All right. I know one is football, the other one is boxing. The first one I want to ask you: I understand the pass interference, everything going on. Do you think it would have been fair for them to say, "Okay, we missed this call. Let them come back and play"? Because I know a lot of people say, "Oh, let them play, let them play." I want your opinion. Do you think it would be fair for them to come back and say, "Hey, Saints Rams, let's play sudden death overtime, first person whoever scores wins"?
No, it's over and done with. The celebrations or lack thereof took place. The city of New Orleans has been miserable because of it. Los Angeles Rams fans have been ecstatic because of it. People crying in the stands and beyond, all of this other stuff going on. There's nothing to talk about. It's what's done is done. Anything that needed to happen in the moment. I don't believe in revisionist history. You're the National Football League. You call for the teams to go back on the field for another 2 minutes or whatever. Are you going to ask 80,000 people to show back up to the stadium to watch 2 minutes of football? That doesn't make sense.
If it's in the Saints' house,
No.
I bet you them 80,000 fans
Doesn't
will come
matter.
back and be like,
It doesn't matter. That's not a wise request. It's not a wise request. It doesn't matter.
I watch boxing. My thing is, who do you think Joshua is next to fight? Is up next for that championship fight?
Well, he's the champion, and he wanted Wilder or Fury in April, but they're agreeing to fight one another. So they're going to have their rematch first, and then after that, it'll be the winner of that and Anthony Joshua, as far as I can determine.
Think that's going to be like an entertaining fight? Because the first one wasn't that entertaining.
Well, anything with Wilder is going to be entertaining because you're talking about a knockout. You're talking about a knockout artist getting in the ring with a guy with power in both hands and Anthony Joshua. That could be that way. The first fight, you could say it wasn't that entertaining. I thought it was. Wilder dropped him in the 9th, nearly finished him off in the 12th. It wasn't the most exciting fight in the year, but it wasn't a bum fight either. It was pretty damn good. I enjoyed it. I was there. I enjoyed it a lot.
Different when you're there and you watch it on TV. Thanks, Stephen A. Man. I know you got to go. Thanks for taking the call.
No problem. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You're listening live, Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. With the Vivid Seats app, it's easy to find awesome seats to any game. Download the app and enter